Welcome back to the table. Today, Emily and I have a double feature for you.
Two games.
These are from Flatout Games. You're very familiar with them if you watch the channel at all, and if you're a board gamer at all. You know, things like Cascadia, Calico, some of our favorite games, and they have Point City, which is sort of the spiritual to successor, or flat-out sequel, if you will.
To Point Salad.
To Point Salad. And Deep Dive right here, which is another small box game. They're both small box games, so we decided to put both of these together in one video. We're going to tackle Point City first to tell you what's going on. And you should pay attention, because if you think, oh, it's just a modified Point Salad, this feels very different. Like, knowing that it's from the people who made Point Salad, you can kind of go, okay, I see the connections. But if you didn't know that, I don't think you'd play this and go, oh, this is like Point Salad. No, yeah, it's a bit more than that. So we have it here on the table. And what we have here are a few things. And it's a very small game. It's a big deck of cards, a few tokens, and then these are basically the player cards.
Yep.
The tokens are civic tokens that you're going to potentially be able to take if you build certain cards. The cards over here are twofold.
Yes.
One side is a resource,
which you can see. On the other side, though, there are buildings. And different buildings are going to give you different things. So these ones both will give you ongoing effects of a resource. But you can also have ones that I'm not choosing.
There it is.
There it is. One that can give you a civic token. Like David was saying, these civic tokens are going to give you endgame scoring conditions, which are each unique. So they're giving you different ways to score points throughout the game.
Yeah, some of those civic cards will let you take a token that's like just straight up 7 points or 5 points. But then, like you can see here, some of them are 3 points for every set of these ongoing resources. Now, those aren't the resources you have in your hand, but the resources that you have sort of to contribute from your buildings at the end of the game. And then the last couple things here, in addition to this massive deck of cards.
It's huge.
And by the way, the deck of cards is sort of tiered. So there's 1, 2, and 3 stacks, and you stack those on top of each other because the resources here are just ones. But as you get down here, not only are the buildings more interesting on the flip side, but you're getting like 2 resources at a time. There's also some wild resources mixed in, which look a lot like these player cards, because we all start with one of these. Everyone's going to take one of these, and then whoever has this one right here is going to be the first player, which I think is a nice way of doing it, so you don't have to...
You don't have to do any other shuffling.
You don't have to mess around, like who's going to be first player. When you're playing the game, you're taking 2 cards on your turn from this display or from the top of the deck. These are very simple rules. If you take 2 resources, they have to be adjacent. So I could take these, I could take any 2 adjacent cards orthogonally.
Yes.
If they're both resources, your turn's over. You have 2 more resources to spend.
Just hauling them up.
And then you refill from this deck top to bottom, left to right. Now, if on your turn you take a building card, or you maybe even 2 building cards, you have to be able to build that building card. So as you can see, the building cards have costs here at the bottom. Now, I might be able to take a couple, well, none of them work out right here, but if I could take these 2, I'd have to be able to build this. And if this were one of the resources it was asking for, I could actually use that card to build that.
So like a first turn might be, so we start with an ingenuity, right, which is a wild resource. I might be able to take this community as a resource and then use this ingenuity with the community to pay for this food court, right? And so then I have this ongoing as my first building.
Exactly, and then you just refill and the next player goes. It really is that simple. You're going to be continuing to do this until the
whole deck runs out.
This whole deck runs out. In fact, it's basically when you can't refill the display that the game is going to end. These tokens, as I was saying, are used to remind you of what kind of cards you took. Because one of the cool things about this game, because you're wondering yourself, how do buildings come out if the resources are face up? Well, 2 different ways. One, the natural course of the game. When you refill, if you took a resource and a building, you're going to replace the building with a resource.
Yep.
You're going to replace the resource with
a
building. So you can see the cards naturally come out in
Flip-flop.
one of the 2 different ways. But at the beginning of your turn, you can also, if a whole row or column is just resources, you may, if you want to, flip over one of the cards in that row or column to its building side. You can never flip over a building to its resource side.
Correct. Once it's a building, it stays the building.
And that is, I think, in our experience, something that's going to happen early in the game.
Yeah, just to give you a few more options when you're starting out. So you're like, oh, I don't have any of the purple communities, so hopefully I'll flip something that has one of the resources I've already taken. But later in the game, the board is pretty full, right? Like you usually have a ton of buildings out, there's really juicy resources going, and you're really just trying to figure out what your engine is good at and what you can capitalize to get more points with.
Yeah, so back to what we said off the start. It's less like point salad, although there are some connections there.
Yes.
And it definitely gives off significant Splendor vibes.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're building a Tableau, you're building an engine builder, so it feels very similar in that way.
Engine builder where you're getting resources, you're spending those resources to get other things. The cool thing about this one is the big difference is those cards are one and the same.
Yes.
So they're either a building or a resource. And like we said, when you build a Civic, you get to take one of these tokens, and at the end of the game, the player with the most points wins. That is Point City. Now, we're going to downshift a little bit because the next one is probably an even lighter game.
Yes.
But it packs a lot of fun, and it's called Deep Dive.
So you can see Deep Dive is also a very simple setup. We have just a bunch of different tokens representing the different depths of the water that our waddles of penguins are going to dive down into.
Yes, waddles of penguins. I didn't know, is that the real term
That's
for
what you said when you're reading the
The
instructions.
rule book, we haven't researched it, but the rule book calls a group of penguins your waddle. And
We're now marine biologists.
I don't know if that's the case, but I'm adopting it for one. I just thought that's what they did. They waddled around. But yes, you are going to be diving with your penguins through the depths to basically set collect a bunch of different colored sea life. Hopefully stuff that you want to eat.
Yes.
Not stuff that wants to eat you, because there are predators
True.
mixed into each of these stacks. Along with things like squids, shrimp, crab, all sorts of different sea life of 3 different colors. And you're going to go down and collect those, and you bring those back to the surface to build sort of a mini tableau of these tokens, starting with a top row and then building down. And the columns are each color. So there's 3 different colors, and you want to complete those rows because it's an important part of scoring. And there's probably no better way to describe this game than to show you how it plays. So we've got a 4-player game set up here, so bear with us. We're going to go through a couple sample turns. On your turn, you can take one of your penguins, and you have to start at this depth before you can go down, typically.
Yes.
And you just choose one of these tokens and flip it face up.
What'd you get?
I got
a predator.
A predator. We didn't look at these beforehand. We probably should have. If you get a predator, your turn is over. You're going to lay your penguin on its side on that token until your next turn.
Yes, so your penguin is now trapped. And what they're doing is they're distracting the predator. But the good part is now that that penguin is trapped there, your next penguin you put out can skip that depth. They can go down even deeper because they know the predators at that level are being enticed by the one who's already trapped right there.
They're doing they haven't been eaten. Don't even think that.
No.
They're there.
This is a family fun game.
They're distracting those predators so you can go deeper. And if you're asking yourself, well, what happens when all 3 of your penguins get trapped? Well, the moment that happens, you bring them all back to the surface, and you can take one face-up food token from any of those depths that they were at. And you'll see those food tokens in a second as Emily takes her turn.
So I'm going to go, and so I go to the first depth, I'll flip over this one, ooh, and I got a little shrimp.
It's safe. It's a shrimp worth 1 point.
1 point. But I can say, okay, do I want to bring that shrimp as one of my food? It's very measly 1 point, though. I think I'm going to keep diving deeper. So I'll go to the next level.
Is it a predator?
No, it's a crab that's worth 4 points.
Oh, and it's a green one. So you had a yellow shrimp and a green crab. So you've got 2 different colors face up. And there's some things to think about here because she could take this or go further because as you could probably already tell, the point values go up as you go deeper. Now, I also think, I haven't done all the counts here, but I think the danger goes up a little bit too.
I do think so. I think the last one has mainly predators.
The percentage of predators down there is higher than, say, up here. There's just fewer tokens down there as well.
Yes.
But yeah, this is her choice. Does she take the crab back to the surface?
I think I would take the crab just because it's a pretty high point value for what it is, and since I don't have any colors yet, I might choose like, okay, green, I have green. Now next I want to look for yellow or pink to try to get that kind of set collection points.
Yeah, and the set collection she's talking about is kind of a cool scoring mechanism because once you get a row that has the yellow, green, and the pink, you're going to score that at the end of the game for its total value.
Yes.
For any row that's incomplete, so say you had the pink and the green but no yellow, you add up the points, but you have them at the end.
So right now, since the green is not complete, it's 4 points halved.
Right.
So it's only 2 points right now, but if I can find a yellow and a pink food, then I'll get the full point value plus theirs.
Yeah, which is what she's going to be looking for. She wants to go down, and if she uncovers more green, that's going to be another variable that enters into her head when she's like, I don't want a whole column of green because I'm going to half my score completely. There's a few other things that you can find here. Of course, there's predators. You've already seen that. But there's also rocks. And the rocks do kind of a cool thing because when you go down and collect a rock and bring it back up, at the beginning of your turn, you can consume that rock. And I don't know, this is another marine biologist question. I don't think penguins do this, but they might. They consume the rock so that they can dive deeper. And when they do this, you can choose whatever depth you want to start your dive. So if you're feeling lucky and you want to go down here and see if you can get a high point value, you can try that. Now, the other cool thing that as you take your turn, if you want to play it safe, you don't want to press your luck as much, as tiles gets flipped, you can see this shrimp is still face up. If I need a yellow badly to complete a row, I might just go, you know what, I'm going to start at this depth, and you can safely just take that shrimp. You don't even have to flip over a token.
Yep.
You're just basically going to that depth. But the moment you go to a depth that you don't want to take a token from, you do have to flip a token to see what happens.
And it's possible too, there are some tokens that just show the bubbles,
Yeah.
which are showing you there's life below the surface, right?
You have to go further.
You have to keep going further. So it might push you to go down and down and down until you're into the waters where there's a lot of predators, and that may not have been your plan from the start, but you're there now.
Yeah, and that push your luck, and this game is all about pushing your luck.
Yeah.
This puts that front and center, the fun to be had by going, I'm going to go deeper, I'm going to go deeper. And I had a lot of fun taking the rocks because there's a lot of rocks in each depth, but particularly up here at the top,
Yes.
you grab a rock on your turn, which may feel like that turn is like, no, I didn't get any points, and my turn's over. But on your next turn, you might be able to dive pretty deep. And in fact, if you dive down here where someone happened to have flipped a high point value, but then they pressed their luck and went down, you can just go right down there and grab the 5-point tile.
Exactly. That's what's really nice is that when people leave things face up, you might be thinking to yourself like, "Ooh, I hope they don't take that because that's exactly what I want."
It might be the color that you need. There's a lot of variables going into that. So this is going to continue until any one of these depths is out of tokens. And it should be said, we set up
face up.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's right. It's face up because when you don't take tokens away, you just kind of put them face up. Once that happens at any depth, it gets back to the first player. They flip this over, and there's one more round. So you effectively finish the round where it's triggered, and then you're going to play another round, and then add up your points based on that tableau that you've built. It really is a lot of fun. This is a very simple game.
It is.
This is not the kind of game that, we play as enthusiast gamers a ton, but a great filler game, I think.
It is. And it's very simple. Like you said, the scoring is simple. The idea is simple. It's a really quick teach. It's a really quick setup. So it's one of those games you can play for sure, a filler in between games and be like, let's just push our luck a little bit.
And like you said, both of these games are family friendly, but this one in particular,
yes,
I think is like incredibly family friendly.
Yes.
If I'd had this game when my sons were younger, I think we could have gotten this to the table like infinitely. So anyway, that is Deep Dive, and that was Point City. If you have any questions at all about either of the games, please make them in the comments below. We'll get down there and answer whatever we can. Until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.